Well, with ample tape left on this side, why, I thought it might be kind of interesting if I related some more of the early days of my playing. I'm going to go back into the late 30s right about now, and I hope my memory will still come up with some of the right answers, because it's been a long time ago. And but anyway, I recall one of the first engagements we played up there. This was booked under the leadership, if my memory serves me correct, of the late Clark Higgins. Clark had his car, and we took myself, perhaps, and himself, and as I recall, there was a drummer by the name of, I think his name was Tate McDonald, I can remember, red-headed guy, lived in Las Vegas, and he was playing drums at that particular time, and he may worked a thing or two with us. So anyway, there was Tate taking his own car up, and maybe somebody else went with him. But I went with Clark, and maybe Gordello Orton might even been in the lineup. And the drummer, I don't know who offhand that could have been on this particular engagement. It might have been Keith Hickman, because Keith was playing quite a few things with us at that particular time. So anyway, Clark decided it might be a good idea to go up to Goldfield, leave a little early in the afternoon, and get up there early so we could renew some of the diggings and look around a little bit. And that we did do. We got up there early, and I thought to myself, my goodness, after seeing Goldfield up there, that was my first trip up through there. And after seeing Goldfield, I thought, where the heck are they going to get enough people around here to hold a dance? But how surprised I was. Now, as my memory serves me correct, this was in Elks Charity Ball. And that old building still stands right there. I've looked at it a number of times when I've gone through Goldfield, Tonapah, and it's brought back a few memories, I can assure you. Because not only that one time did I play there, but I went up at another time to play in Elks Charity Ball. Well, I recall us to this first time up there with Clark after we got through playing the engagement, and the place was well packed with people. As you can imagine, the wages we made weren't very much, and we played some late hours up there. Doggone it, I think we started maybe about 9 o'clock, and maybe played till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Boy, that was really tough on the old chops. Of course, we'd have some breaks in between. Well, anyway, upon completion of this engagement, the old Goldfield Hotel had a restaurant in there at that time, and we went in there and had a nice breakfast, and we started out for home. It was an enjoyable trip. We got up there and got back safe and sound. As I recall at that time, this car that Clark had was it was either a 1935 or 1936 Chevrolet sedan. I will remember that, and it functioned well. And of course the roads then were not what they were, and it was darn cold too, you know. Elks Charity Balls are held usually in the October, the later time of the year, darn cold. But we made it home safe and sound, and I don't recall what money we made, but it wasn't very much. But still in that era, you know, a couple of bucks would buy something. Today, no way would it do that. Okay, let's go back now, and at that particular time, I played a few jobs with Clark, the old American Legion Hall, and around. And I think we even played a few dances out to Lorenzi Lake. In fact, I know we did. Would you believe it? They had a nice dance pavilion out there at Lorenzi Lake. And the personnel in the band, I can't recall too much. These were small bands, 5 and 6 men, Clark and myself, and I'm sure he had Orton with him. Now, to my opinion, Orton didn't play too good. He was a real nice guy and everything but later on I talked Clark into moving over from saxophone to bass, which he did do, because his E-flat alto playing sax and he didn't play clarinet, you know, that pretty tough when you just play saxophone and no clarinet, because many of the orchestrations call for clarinet, double. Well, anyway, like I say, we played some gigs at Lorenzi Lake, and they nice big crowds out there, and a few incidental things around here. Things were starting to happen a little bit then, the way maybe you could play with 4 or 5 men, you know. Okay, now the next trip up was up to Tonapah. I well remember this, is because in the lineup at this particular time was Jack Herney, saxophone, Bud Holmes, saxophone, myself, trumpet, and Keith Hickman on drums and Clark Chadburn on piano. Just the 5 of us. And we went up there to play a 3-day celebration called Jim Butler Days. And if my memory serves me correct, even as today, in this day, and I'm speaking of about 1993 when I'm recording this thing, they still carry on those events up there. But this particular time we went up to Tonapah, how well I recall that. I took I had a 33 Ford V8, and I attached a small trailer to the back of it, and I hauled all our instruments and everything in that, and that took care of us. Now, the committee up there who had hired us, they had rooms reserved for us at the old Kelly Hotel. So that's where we stayed. Now, that was really a celebration, let me tell you, there in Tonapah. They had drilling contests and just all kinds of activities going on. And I recall as to the parade that was being staged. The parade chairman come up to me, or one of the guys, I don't recall who. I think we were all pretty much leaders, you know. And he said, we had a band coming up from Caliente that was supposedly going to march in the parade, but they didn't make it. Now he said, we'd be willing to pay you guys if just 3 of you would get on a flatbed truck, which we will have there, and ride down the street and maybe play a tune or two. So whoever it was, the spokesman for our group, whether it was me or Chad or Bud or whoever, we said, we got real generous. We said for $30, all 5 of us will be down there. And the guy was really elated. So that we did do. The piano player, Chad, I think he played bass drum, and Keith played snares, and Bud played clarinet, and Jack tenor, myself on trumpet, and we played a couple of old marches, things that we were some familiar with back through the years, you know, just to the refrain of the chorus. It only lasted, the parade was very short, maybe about just a few blocks, and we didn't have to exert ourselves playing, so we was happy with the $30. So that night they had the big dance at this is the first night, we're playing there, dances for 3 nights. And I was surprised again where all the people come from. They pull up from Goldfield, Tonapah, Tonapah in general, I should say, Hawthorne. I can't begin to tell you where all those people did come from, but a good crowd. And this was a dancing era. They loved to dance. And they liked the music that we played. As I recall, this first night, we probably started playing at 9 o'clock, and maybe we played till about 2 o'clock in the morning. That was the extent of our hours. We'd made those arrangements before we came. So I recall the next day, the chairman, or whoever it was, that had booked a big fight over in the arena there in Goldfield, or in Tonapah, I beg your pardon. They had a nice boxing arena that would seat quite a few people. And I guess there was some pretty big events held in Goldfield and Tonapah when you stop and think about it back through the years. Boy, they had some good events up there. So anyway, this guy said, if you fellows will come over and ballyhoo a little music in front of the arena down there where people are coming in, just to attract people, he said, we'll give you ringside seats. Well, we thought, well, that sounds like a good deal, to get to see a good boxing event, and incidentally, the main event was a one-time light heavyweight champion of the state of Nevada by the name of Tommy Jordan. Man, a beautiful guy with a beautiful physique. So he was the mainliner. So we ballyhooed a few numbers there, and then we went in and had a ringside seat. We sat through the lesser events. There was some, pretty interesting, even though they were just minor events. But when we got to the main event, well, there's quite a number of Indians in there, and this Tommy Jordan was fighting an Indian by the name of Ernie Collins. I well remember his name. I didn't know much about Ernie Collins, but I guess he'd had some pretty good fights around the country. And, he was pretty well up as a fighter. But anyway, before the bell rang and everything, in anticipation of the main event, some of these Indians in there, they weren't feeling any pain. They'd been drinking, and they're all raising a couple, $3, $5. And me like him, Ernie Collins. Me like him, Ernie Collins. We guys in the band took a look at each other, and we thought, oh, man, that's not right, maybe to take advantage of these drunk Indians, but money's money. So between us, maybe we covered about $30. And so prior to the bell ringing, why, Tommy Jordan takes off his robe and he gets up and springs around on the rope. Gee, a beautiful built guy. And you said to yourself, boy, this can't last long. This Indian, he's sitting over there in the corner, in his corner. I don't think he'd taken the blanket off his head. But anyway, when that bell sounded, that Indian jumped out of his corner. They went to the center of the ring, and there was about 4 hits made. And the next thing we know, Tommy Jordan was down on his back flat, knocked out cold. So that went to show you right there, you couldn't tell a book by its cover. We learned that darn quick. Well, anyway, as to this event, after the third night of playing and everything, it was an enjoyable affair up there for 3 days. It was a diversion to get away from Boulder City about that time. So we start off for home, and we make it home safe and sound. Me driving that little old 33 Ford V8, and with a trailer behind it, and hauling the instruments. So when we got into Vegas, why, we parted company. I left the guys off along there, and I came in at home, and back to work I went. I'd taken a couple, 3 days off, what it was for this particular event. Now, like I say, this is all back in the 30s. And of course, Railroad Pass is going strong, and I'm playing out there. And I'm playing in Boulder City at Anderson's Mess Hall, the Old American Legion Hall. We didn't make much money. I think $5 what we got for playing a dance job. And as to this particular era, whoever booked a job at the Legion Hall or Anderson's or wherever, why, he was the leader. It could have been me or Clark Higgins or Johnny Walker or Chip White, because we're all the same guys in the band, just a different personnel. But that time we had some pretty good guys around there. They played pretty well. And Clark at that particular time, like I say, he was playing saxophone, but I talked him into going into string bass. And maybe that was a good thing, because later on, after World War II, he came home. He went into the service himself, and he went with a relief band under the direction of Benny Sharp. Now, they were playing the night off at all the hotels, and Clark was playing bass. So that was a good move for Clark. He worked at that quite steady. And now, again, as to Railroad Pass, oh gosh, I could tell you lots of stories about Railroad Pass. That was really the heyday. I will recall a bouncer out to Railroad Pass by the name of Tex Collins. He was a heavyweight, or light heavyweight, Golden Gloves champion from Texas. Beautiful built guy. And boy, there were some fights out there, some good ones, let me tell you this. Maybe the bartenders, and or I should say the high scalers, the truck drivers would stage a big dance out there. They got drunked up, and pretty quick there was a lot of fisticuffs. Well, Tex could take care of a couple of them pretty good, but maybe after there's a gang fight, 3 or 4 of them got in it. He needed a little help. They had about 3 bartenders along that bar, and some of those guys were pretty agile. They could spring over that bar one leap and give Tex a hand controlling him. And there was a time or two maybe I was tempted to jump in there and help. And the guys in the band said, "Hey, do you want to get your teeth knocked out? You better stay right where you're at." And of course that I did do. But what a day that was. What a day that was. Getting back to Lorenzi Lake, I recall now, this would have, again, I'm speaking of the late 30s right about now. A band from Ely come down to play an engagement at Lorenzi's Lake. And they were using the band, I think they had 3 saxophones, trumpet, piano, drums, and bass, maybe banjo, I don't know, I can't recall. But anyway, I got a call if I would like to come in and play with them for this particular opening they had. So I said, sure, I'm not doing anything, I'll go in and hold on. I didn't know any of the guys, or didn't think I did, but when I got in there, lo and behold, here's Creighton Phelan playing trumpet. And Creighton, I took one of my first lessons from Creighton on trumpet in Ely. And I so well recall, I had such a good ear, Creighton would just write the valves under the notes, first and third, open first or second valve, and I could play I could play little songs and everything. So I learned to play that way before I could even read. But anyway, on seeing Creighton, I just couldn't believe it. We shook hands, and such an old friend. Of course, I'd grown up a lot then, you know what I mean. I'm just a kid. I hadn't seen him in all those years. And so he said, I want you to play first trumpet. I said, no, you're the teacher. You play first, I'll play second. Well, anyway, we figured that out, and we played the dance job. Then there was a guy playing saxophone that I remembered from Ely up there. His name was Ernie Sherwood. So I enjoyed that. So I just point out that there was a few good things that took place at Lorenzi Lake. I remember one night Clark Higgins and I coming back from playing a gig at Lorenzi Lake, and 2 or 3 other guys were with us. I don't recall who the personnel was. Maybe this Tate McDonald again on drums, maybe Orton on saxophone. But anyway, it was just Clark and I coming home in his car. And I recall right up there about by 4 Mile, the old Roxy, you know, there was a terrible head-on collision there. There was no freeway or nothing then in that day, you got to believe. It was just a 2-lane highway. And Clark and I made a fast stop over there. One guy sitting at the wheel of his car all drunked up and bloody. The other car, it looked like it had considerable damage. About that time, the police showed up and we took off. We didn't want to get involved in anything. But a lot of memories with Clark. He was a good friend. And he played some pretty darn good bass. I enjoyed my stay with Clark. And after I went into World War II, Clark put a band in. He didn't go into the service till quite a bit later than I did. But he put a band in there. There was Orion Sims playing piano, and he had Orton again and himself, and a vibraphone player by the name of Keith Horton. Yeah, that was his name, Keith Horton. And as I recall, along about that time, he may have had Lou James, a meat cutter, there at Manny's playing drums. I don't quite remember. But anyway, Clark held that down quite a little bit till he got into the service. He went down there. And of course, I'm already in the service. And I recall, as to this particular time, well, I came home on an embarkation leave. And I went out to the pass and I sat in with Clark and Orion, Clay, whoever it was. And that was an enjoyable thing. And I'm sure they thought to themselves that, you know, that I'd greatly improved. You know, I'd been playing with this good Navy band under the name of George. And I think they liked what they heard, and I liked renewing my acquaintances with them. Well, I'm going to knock off this tape right about now and give myself a little rest. Oh, I might mention too before I knock off, there's Chad, Clark Chadburn. Now, Chad organized a nice little group in the late 1930s. Like I say, we were moving around from band to band. But in this group that Chad had, he had 3 saxophones. He had the late Otto Littler on alto, Bud Holmes, Jack Herney, Keith Hickman on drums, himself on piano, myself on trumpet, and his sister Helen Lawrence on vocals. So anyway, down at the bottom of the Apache Hotel, which is now the Benny Binions, well, there was a nice little night spot down there called the Kiva Club. So we played some nice little gigs down there. And the band sounded pretty darn good. You know, we played just stocks, choruses mostly. But we had a lot of fun. And how could I ever forget as to the late Eber Grubb. Now, Ebe was quite a musician, I can tell you. I've mentioned him before on the other side of the tape of being the business agent of our local. And Ebe had a drinking problem. He liked his drink. The one little thing I liked about Ebe was he was a good guy. He was so funny. He had a little joint, a little place out in East Las Vegas called the Igloo. And I'd come by once in a while there to see him, you know, just stop in there to visit him. He had a little piano in there. And maybe there's nobody in there at that time other than Ebe. And he'd say, "Nelson, you so-and-so, go out and get that iron horn and come on in here and let's play some music." Well, I liked to play with old Ebe because he had those big old long fingers. Man, he could really span a lot of keys. In fact, he had you well covered. You could hit practically any note on the staff. And, and you know, like I say, he had you covered. You had to sound good. One little joke about Ebe I got to tell. He said a fellow walked into a joint that was kind of cute. And this 2 o'clock in the morning, and the guy's busy, you know, washing glassware and everything, because the swing shift had left him with a bundle of glasses to clean up. This guy come in, he ordered a beer. The bartender, he was real sorry looking because he was hacked, having been left all that glassware to clean up. So this guy that ordered the beer says, where's your toilet?" Bartender says, "It's over there in the corner, but it's locked." That's all he said. So this guy just went on drinking his beer, and he thought he'd just carry on a little one-sided conversation to this sour old bartender. So he said, "You know something?" He said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "I recently inherited a little piece of property." He says, "Passed on from my grandfather to my father and now to me. There was a little chick sale out in the yard. My grandfather never did much to it, but my great-grandfather, I should say, didn't do much to it. But after he passed on, my grandfather, why, he poured a little cinder walk down it, and he made a two-holer out of it, and he put a little concrete path down there and broom swept it so it wouldn't be slippery. My father passed away some few years back, and I inherited the property. I whitewashed it, and I put some toilet paper holders out there and fixed it up real good." And he said, "You know something?" to that bartender. He says, "My great-grandfather, my grandfather, nor myself ever kept that place locked. And right to this day, nobody's ever stole one bit of shit out of there. Boy, but did he tell him off." Well, that was the favorite story of old Ebe's. But lots of characters I did know, I can tell you for sure.